Welcome back to This Week on Staten Island. I'm Anthony Pascal. My next guest has been chosen by the borough's Republican Party to run for Joe Borelli's state assembly seat. Borelli won a seat in the city council late last year, and now a special election will be held in April. And there's a good chance Ron Castorina will be the only candidate on the ballot. I'd like to welcome attorney Ron Castorina to the program. Ron, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to us about a little bit about your history. I know this is the first time you're actually running for office, but you do have some experience in politics. Talk about it.
I do. I started out in politics back in 1995 working on campaigns for the Republican Party. I'm a lifelong Republican. I've been involved in campaigns since I can remember.
And when you say involved in campaigns, just in what capacity?
Well, I mean, I started with walking, going, door to door, with palm cards, with petitions. So I've started at, very, very grassroots stuff, all the way up to advising candidates and working with elected officials, advising electeds. I was counsel to Councilman Vincent Ignizio for several years. So I've spent quite a bit of time in my life. Aside from my law firm, I'm an attorney. I was a former commissioner for the New York City Board of Elections for the Republican Party on Staten Island. So I've been involved for.
So why make the plunge now? Why does Ron Castorina want to be a state assemblyman?
Well, you know what? There's an opportunity here, and I've always been committed to public service. To me, public service is the most important service. When you give back to your community in a way where you're giving of yourself, of your talents and your experiences. I've been a leader in the private sector, and now I want to bring those talents and skills to the public sector and to give back to the community that I live in, that I love. Where I want to raise a family, or I want to, grow my business. So to me, it's the most important thing. And now there's an opportunity, and I want to seize upon that.
So talk about your political philosophies. Where do you stand on some of the key issues? Where do you see your political leanings? I mean, obviously you're a Republican, but what does that mean to you?
I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm a strict constructionalist when it comes to constitutional issues. I believe in smaller government. I believe in lower taxes. Those are the fundamental philosophies that I believe in. Certainly on the issues, I believe in supporting the 2% cap on property taxes and so on. So I have a very conservative bent when it comes to economic and issues of that sort.
Let's talk about issues relating specifically to Staten Island. What do you see as the key issues, and where do you think you can, help in some of the issues that Staten Islanders face?
Well, right now, the top issues that I can conceive of being things that I want to tackle right away would be the heroin epidemic on Staten Island. It's really the scourge of our society. All you have to do is look at the obituaries and you see young people, and it never says why they died, but it says they died at home. And you see people in their 20s, and you know what it is. And there's a stigma. Nobody wants to talk about it. I want to talk about it. I want to bring education to the schools. I want our young people to know that they need to stay away from this stuff. I also want to bring a sense of punitive measure to those who are flooding our streets with this poison. And at the same time, I want to help those that are arrested for these crimes of having heroin on them and get them help that they need. We need to invest in drug treatment court in better and more innovative ways. But education is key, and let's start the dialogue, because the stigma of not talking about it and is just not going to help eradicate this from our society. Of course, the commute, transportation, is an enormous issue. It took over 2 hours just for me to come to your studio today.
How do you help the commute?
Well, there are so many ways, and I'm looking forward to talking about perhaps a new transportation hub on the South Shore to get commuters to and from Manhattan in a fraction of the time, whether it be from buses going into the PATH train, whether it be perhaps a fast ferry off of through the Arthur Kill, through Fresh Kills. Studies have been done in the 90s. They've been reinvigorated by the borough president, and that's something that I certainly would want to jump into and investigate. Getting people off the roads, getting people on fast ferries, getting private businesses involved, and alleviating the congestion.
I want to ask you about how you became the candidate for the Assembly seat. There was some controversy in some way. This was a special election, and basically the party leader, John Antonello, could have chosen whoever he wanted. And he basically said from the start that you were going to be his candidate. Do you believe that the voters lose out at all by there not being a choice when it comes to the candidate?
Well, John Antonello had said originally that when asked, who he was supporting, that he was supporting me because he thought that out of the people that had come forward at that time, that I was the most qualified. He did say that he was going to hold interviews and that anybody could come in, and if there was somebody that was more qualified, that they would be given the same consideration. This was an open process, and the voters should know that the executive committee is made up of probably about 20 some odd people. They're people that had walked petitions to get onto the county committee. It only takes about 20 signatures to get on county committee. So anybody can be a part of this process. So there were probably about 70 people total that were involved, and they voted, and it was unanimous. The recommendation of the executive committee was that I should be the candidate, and two other people had interviewed. So it was kind of like a primary within the 62nd Assembly District. So it wasn't like one person tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're the guy." This really was an open process, and there were no other nominations from the floor.
It seems like right now, as we're watching the presidential election unfold, people do not want the establishment candidate. They want somebody maybe who hasn't really been in politics before. How do you see yourself?
Well, being the establishment candidate, to me, is not a dirty word, because frankly, I am very proud about the relationships that I've been able to cultivate over the last 20 years that I've been involved in politics. There are people know me. They're retired firemen and policemen and leaders in business. They know my integrity. They know my approach to government. And so I don't look at it as, establishment is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because I've been tried and tested, and people know me. They've seen the way I conduct myself, and they think that I'm the best candidate. So I'm proud about that, and it's very humbling.
And one of the big issues in Albany right now, corruption. We saw Shelley Silver headed to prison now. What can you tell us about your philosophy on that and so forth?
Look, corruption is certainly something that I will look to combat in every way. But we also have to keep mindful that there are a lot of very good people involved in public service, and we shouldn't let just a few rotten apples spoil it for the whole bunch.
One of the big issues is whether lawmakers have outside income. If you do become Assemblyman, will you have outside income?
Well, I'm a member of a law firm, and so the answer is yes. However, if that were to pass, I'm happy to walk away from that outside income and throw myself into fully going forward and without the outside income and just taking care of the business of the people, which is exactly why I'm doing this.
Republican candidate for State Assembly, Ron Castorina. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, it is time for a break. When we come back, I'll talk to someone else who wanted to run for State Assembly but was not chosen. Janine Materna will join me after this. Stay with us.